Hey everyone, thanks for joining today. So today I wanted to talk about how I edited my first novel. When I was first going through the editing process, I tried to look up a ton of videos, couldn't really find any that were like exactly the process of editing that I wanted to go through. So this is just kind of how I did it without any like real knowledge of the editing process at all. Again, this was my first novel, so had no idea what to expect. So I just wanted to go step by step through what I did. So the first thing that I did was I wrote without editing in between or like editing each chapter or stopping writing to edit. I just full on wrote my entire first draft before editing a single thing, which I do think was very helpful because it allowed me to get my ideas out on the paper. It flowed much better, and it just really allowed me to write the story with how I wanted it to go, and then I was able to fill in the gaps later. I think it really helped with just the whole flow of the story. I think if I had stopped and edited it in between chapters or out of order, I think that it would have been a lot choppier of a storyline, especially as my first novel. I think it was very beneficial to just have the story on paper before going back and changing anything. The second step that I did is after I finished my first draft, I actually printed it out and spiral bound it. So I have a spiral binder because I used to make planners, but I'm pretty sure that you could take it to Staples or any local copy store, and they would print it and spiral bind it for you. I just found this to be so much more helpful to like actually have a copy and not like have the pages get out of order. It was just so much easier to manage, and I was able to like flip it. I could bring it with me when I was going somewhere. I took it to the beach a couple times and edited at the beach. It was really great to like have that hard copy. The third thing that I did was I had my sister read through the book from start to finish. So after I completed my edits on the original spiral bound copy, I then printed out a new one with any changes that I wanted to make and gave it to her. So she had a fresh spiral bound copy, and I had her make any little marks on it. I asked her to look out for grammar errors, spelling errors, any flow issues that she felt needed improvement, if she felt like the storyline moved too fast, if it moved too slow. And so she is the perfect person to do this with because my book is a romance novel and she reads a ton of romance novels, a huge romance novel reader. So it just made perfect sense for her to be the one that I give a copy to read. So that was super helpful. She marked up like things that I hadn't even thought of, some spelling errors that I missed the 6 times that I read through the book before. So it was very helpful to have that set of eyes, and even more helpful to see the book from a reader's perspective of if the story was moving too fast, if it felt like there was a piece missing. It was so helpful, and I really feel like that made all the difference in getting to the final result. The fourth step of my editing process was, of course, taking my sister's draft that she had marked up and making any changes necessary. Went through it page by page and made those changes. And I also, as I was going through it page by page, I also was rereading it. So I could see from her perspective, for example, if she made a note that it felt like the scene was missing something, I was able to reflect in that moment and be like, yes, I agree, there is something missing here, because I was also reading it along with her. The other important thing that I think is good to note is that there was, between this editing round and writing it, there was a good like 9 to 10 months of time in between. So I had stepped away from it for a little while, and I've documented that here. But that really allowed me to kind of see the book from a whole new perspective, because I wasn't as attached to it as when I had first written it. I feel like you almost need some time, maybe not like 9 to 10 months, that was a lot, but I do feel like you need some time to pass between writing it and then going through some rounds of revisions, just because it does kind of give you that like clearer sense and allow you to kind of step into more of a reader role rather than a writer role. So then my next round of revisions were going through out of order and editing chapters that way, which I had heard about this. I can't remember what YouTuber had recommended this, but I had heard about it on YouTube from another writer. And it was helpful for catching like grammatical errors, spelling errors, because you're not so much lost in the storyline as you are when you go from chapter 1 to the end of the book. You are not in context so much, so it's easier to catch things. If you have an extra word, if you have a sentence that doesn't make sense or something like that, it's much easier to catch if you go out of order. So I do think that that was helpful. I think that I could have probably done that earlier on in the process, maybe before I had given the copy to my sister. I think that's probably what I'll do differently next time. The final step of my editing process was printing out another spiral bound copy and reading through it as if I was a reader. So I started chapter 1 and went all the way to the end. I would stop for breaks. I read it exactly as if I was a reader reading a romance novel, which I do read. So that's exactly how I read it. I would stop if I had to go make dinner, or if I was going somewhere. Like, I would stop, I would bookmark it, pick back up exactly where I left off. And again, like I had to take myself out of it and my emotion towards the story when doing this, because you do get a little bit attached to your books, and sometimes it's hard to take that sense of self out of it and just read it from an honest reader's perspective. Like, if I was someone who is an avid romance reader, would I like this story? Would I like the flow? Would I be happy with the characters? Did the characters grow? Is there a clear pathway to their growth? Do you see their struggles clearly? Things like that are really important to a romance novel, especially like mine is very heavily focused on second chances. And to have a second chance novel that depicts the story well, you need to make sure that you have those things. So doing that was super helpful. And again, this was like 10 months from when I had first started writing the book. So that timing definitely did help. So there are obviously more steps that you can take. You could hire a professional editor. You can send it to more friends and family to read through. Those are all really great options. I just didn't want to hire a professional editor for this go around. I may or may not regret that and do it differently this time around, but that was the route that I chose to go for this novel. So that is my editing process from start to finish. I should have my proof copy soon. I'm very excited for that. And I am even more excited to start going through the book launch process with you guys. And I will take you along. Thanks for tuning in.